I call the November 16th, 2021 closed session meeting of the City of Fullerton City Council to order. Madam Clerk, do you care to explain to people how they may participate?
Thank you, Mayor. People can participate in tonight's meeting by going to the video stream at https://fullerton.legistar.com. You can also see it on Spectrum Cable Channel 3 and ATTUverse Channel 99. We will have seating available in the council chamber for those who choose to participate in person, and please observe all COVID protocols. You can also view the meeting or participate in the meeting through Zoom. You can do that either online or through telephone. For those who are online, it's zoom.us/join. Those who are calling in can call 1-669-900-9128, and the Zoom meeting ID is 978-4219-1797, and all that information and more is also on the agenda on our webpage.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Would you now please call the roll?
Mayor Whitaker.
Here.
Councilmember Silva.
Here.
Councilmember Zara.
Here.
And Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap and Councilmember Jung are not yet present.
We will now hear public comment on closed session items. I see none in the chamber. I don't know whether we have callers.
No callers.
Okay. Are there any closed session announcements, Madam Clerk?
No announcements.
Okay. We shall recess to closed session. I call the November 16th, 2021 regular meeting of the City of Fullerton City Council to order. Madam Clerk, could you please explain to those at home how they may participate this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. This meeting will be televised live at fullerton.legistar.com on Spectrum Channel, Cable Channel 3 and ATTUverse Channel 99. The public can attend in person or participate virtually by joining the Zoom meeting. You can do that by online or by telephone. If you join online, go to zoom.us/join. If you're joining by telephone, the phone number is 1-669-900-9128 and enter Zoom meeting ID 978-4219-1797. And this information and more is available also with the agenda posted on the website.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Williams, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Whitaker.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap.
Here.
Councilmember Jung.
Present.
Councilmember Silva.
Here.
Councilmember Zara.
Here.
We are pleased this evening to have our invocation provided by Fullerton Police Department Chaplain Charlie Frost. Good evening.
Good evening. Let's stand together, present ourselves before the Lord.
I found it.
My Father, we come before you and humbly bow before you, seeking your will and your wisdom. Father, bless these councilmen as they have been chosen by you to be our leaders of this community. I ask you, Father God, to be our first responders. They're in the field as we speak, Father. And I ask you to put your arms and your hands around them, protect them, Father God, how much they mean to us and to our heart of hearts. God, bless the business to be taken care of here tonight. We present it to you, Father. May it be your will. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Councilmember Zara to please lead us in the pledge.
Thank you. Please follow me as we honor our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Mr. City Attorney, do we have a closed session report this evening?
No report this evening.
Thank you. Time to declare ex parte communications. If any members of the council have those to declare.
Mr.
Councilmember
Mayor,
Jung.
I met with officials from the police department, POA, and also the firefighters union. Thank you, sir.
And I also spoke with the POA and the fire union representative.
I had a conversation with Mr. Lancaster from the Fullerton Firefighters Association.
Nothing to report.
I only would report that I received a text from Mr. Lancaster, but we didn't have any dialogue. And with that, there are no presentations this evening, so we're at the point for public comments. Any members of the public wishing to speak to items not appearing on this evening's agenda are asked to line up on the north side to check in with the clerk or with the desk out front, and please approach the microphone here. This is a familiar face. Good evening.
Evening. I'm going to put my glasses on. 60s has not been kind to me, so I must wear glasses now. Okay, so I want to come here as my annual visit to say thank you so much for the honor of allowing us to do the Veterans Day program for the city of Fullerton. We had a great event. We had over 550 kids on the field. We had hundreds of people in the audience. It was extremely hot. We had very few heat injuries, so we're very, very grateful for that. It speaks well of everyone planning. I'm only aware of one heat issue that was dealt with the fire department, and that was somebody who was a visitor there, not participant. So we have to thank a whole bunch of people. Some helped a lot, some helped a little, but they all need thank yous. So I want to thank you with, again, the council, the Fullerton Police Department, Lieutenant Tony Bogarts, who ran the Honor Guard, Sergeant Brandon Clyde, Billy Fu, Corporals Lloyd Boucher, Austin Grogan, Kevin Bedrosa, Peter Raya, Officer Brian Franco, Michael Orr. We had police cadets there helping us with traffic. The traffic division itself, just by the way, we missed the motorcycles. They're so cool. So if that's a possibility, we'd love to have them back. The fire department, city manager's office. We had a new Raya. Our replacement for Raya is Jerome Joaquin. He did a great job this year. So thank you for that. Parks and Recreation and Public Works. We had a lot of people help from that. So I want to say thank you to John Clements, Dave Lamelli, Ramon Silva, Kevin Casfar, Jose Hernandez, Matt Esqueda, David Figueroa, Carlos Ochoa, Eduardo Echeverria, Padraig Falls, Roland Sotak, and Community Development and Risk Management. So I have certificates for all those and some programs. And another thank you so much. It's an honor to do this for you. And we look forward to another good year. And thank you all for attending. That was awesome.
Thank you, and perhaps a word or two on the other event on Veterans Day.
I want to thank you. Every time I think about what you said the other day, I have to think a little bit more about that. That we raised over $1 million this last year to put the memorial up. So I just want to thank you for recognizing the effort it took to do that. It was exciting to go week by week to take pictures and see it. As one of my friends said, from up out of the ground, it came to be. And it was pretty awesome, and we hope that for many years to come that the Fullerton and community and all those around will come and visit and remember and enjoy it.
And for clarity, we're talking about the Orange County Korean War Memorial
We are.
dedication, which happened at 1 p.m. on Veterans Day.
Yes.
Kudos to everyone involved. It's a very quality site, and it was done well and with care and concern and with accuracy, I might add.
Yeah.
But I've been seeing many people turn up out there looking for names, leaving flowers, leaving notes. I think that it's going to be a real asset to this city.
I do too, and thank you for acknowledging that. I want to let you know that one of the guys that put the granite up, the tablets up, he does memorials all over the United States. And he said, I just got to tell you that this is a real class act memorial here, better than most that I ever do, and you should be really proud of it. So,
And to go back to the Veterans Day event, Brigadier General Christopher Barra did a great job as well. So
thank you. We'll
always
let
a
him know.
quality event. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Now, I neglected to say that this is also time for people to pull any agenda items, any consent calendar items. Go ahead.
Yeah, that actually is what I'm asking. I'd like to request consent item number 6 to be pulled,
Okay.
and I have a public comment regarding that when it's time.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. It was wonderful to have the Veterans Day ceremonies live again, and it was so wonderful to see so many young people. And the Korean memorial dedication was absolutely lovely. It was a little warm, and I got the biggest kick out of when they said, "Would you please hold your speeches till 2 minutes?" And I, for a kick, just started timing them, and they ran from about 3.5 to 4.5 minutes apiece. But the one person that gave their speech in 1 minute 10 seconds was Councilman Jung, and I laughed really hard at that. I thought that was absolutely hilarious, but it was a lovely presentation, and the gifts that the Korean consul left for everyone were absolutely fantastic. I tried to get in touch with the consulate yesterday, and there was nothing but a recording that looped over and looped over. So I hope someday soon I'll be able to get through and thank them personally. Thank you so very much, and I hope we have a good year for next year. Thank you.
Good evening.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Can put my cheaters on first. Evening, City Council members and staff. My name is Tony Package, and I'm a 17-year resident of Fullerton. I notice on this agenda and the 2 future preliminary agendas that the budget ARPA vote is absent, as is your good senses and obligations to the city employees and voting citizens of Fullerton. The absolute worst case of kicked the can down the road, but that is what I expected from a dysfunctional city council. The holidays are coming soon, and I'm sure you are working on your holiday greetings to all loyal, hardworking city employees. I have saved you the trouble with the following. Dear employees, the members of the Fullerton City Council wish you and your family a safe and healthy holiday season. Enjoy your time with your family, relatives, and friends. Unfortunately, once we return from the holidays, we're going to vote on reducing the staff and make your life as miserable as possible. While we have a new mayor, but the city council members have not changed, nor has their dysfunctional, uncompromising attitude towards what is good for Fullerton. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I think that catches the sentiment of the city council. Mayor Whitaker, this will be your last time as mayor, and this is your legacy, ending your term with no budget. And you leave that position with employees leaving and the inability to hire a replacement. That is shameful. That is shameful, a nice legacy. Mr. Dunlap, I've been hard on you. Are you still awake? Are you awake? Yes, thank you. I was hard on you because you come to the meetings unprepared. You seem like a bright person, but you need to show some leadership skills and work at compromising. You will never get all 32 million ARPA funds dedicated to roads. You need some of the funds to shore up our revenue shortages. The best scenario that gives you the most road funds and reach a compromise with several others is scenario number 1. Please come off your high perch and become a leader. We need you to come down and start working with the rest of the people. Please, I ask you that. I'm being kind of nice, aren't I? Mr. Zara, I know this has been a tough year for you after the December ambush. You have good principles, but must try to mend some fences. Mr. Jung, you like to try to be the compromiser, but you need to do a better job of controlling your emotions, and then we talked about that. Mr. Silver, your heart is in the right place, and keep up the good fight for the city employees. Thank you very much. As Abe Lincoln said, a house divided cannot stand. Who's going to start showing some leadership and get some things done? Thank you very much. Good luck.
Good evening. My name is Jan Flory, and I am here tonight because I'm very disturbed by some of the council decisions pertinent to the Union Pacific Park as well as the UP Trail. Jesse Latour, in this latest Observer, did a great job of summarizing a lot of what has happened here, and I'm encouraging everybody who lives in this community to read that article. To begin with, let's look at the trajectory. First of all, it began with the failure of the City Council to extend Renewable Farms' exclusive negotiating agreement for a measly 6 months. In all my years on council, I don't believe that any request to extend an ENA has ever been denied before, but here it was. And Renewable Farms was a wonderful concept, an aquaponic farm that the neighborhood fully supported. And here they were asking for an extension because their process of figuring out the solutions for getting renewable farms was compromised by COVID. City Hall was understaffed. We were not up for business as normal, so it was quite a slap in the face, and a wonderful prospective business was terminated because of that. Secondly, we have a Hugo Curial, who was the director of our Parks and Recreation Committee, was suddenly terminated. Wasn't given 1 day's notice. Why? It's my opinion that he was terminated because he not only supported the Union Park proposal, he supported Renewable Farms, he was very instrumental in obtaining a $1.78 million grant for the Union Park Trail. All of that came to a crashing halt, but not before this council had serious discussions about turning back the $1.78 million grant, not accepting a grant from the state funded by our tax dollars. In any event, by the hair of its chinny chin chin, it finally did pass, but it looked like the council was in complete disarray. Mr. Bushala was the one who was the advocate for turning back the grant. Mr. Bushala, it is no secret that he has a specific interest in adjacent properties to Union Park. He has indicated in this forum that he is interested in acquiring that. And I would suggest to you that when it comes to Mr. Bushala's advocating for the interests of this community as opposed to his family's financial interests, there is no contest there. So what did the council finally do? They approved. Here we have park design, we have grant money, and yet the council is not moving on it. You're stalling again. Is my time up? Okay.
Yes, it has.
I'm sorry. I have a lot more to say about this, but I would encourage the council to ditch the RFP, get on with this proposed final design, and move on something, please.
Thank you.
is Bernard, and I am a Fullerton resident. At the last meeting, Councilmember Jung asked if there was any Brown Act violation for the whispering and obvious deal-making between Councilmember Jung and Councilmember Silva during the budget discussion. The city attorney made some rationale that it wasn't. I find it really hard to believe that not one of the council members spoke with any third member outside of the meeting trying to cut a deal. It seems that would constitute a violation, does it not? Furthermore, Tony Bushala said in an interview with the Fullerton Observer that he expects those who he supports to listen, and that he has a convergence of interest in reference to the trail project. His political action committee, as I tallied, spent over $18,000 to prop up Councilmember Jung and $9,000 for Mayor Whitaker. He sits on two committees that he has a personal interest in, and a public benefit trail project got bamboozled for him. Why? Councilmember Jung, Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap, and Mayor Whitaker, this is corruption. And I demand an investigation into your relationship with developer Tony Bushala. Go Bruins.
Madam Clerk, are there Zoom callers or other members of staff?
Looks like we have one more in chambers, and I see no hands. We have one hand in Zoom. And if anybody else in chambers would like to speak, please line up for now. Otherwise, this will be our last in-chamber speaker.
Thank you. Mr. Gamble.
How you doing, sir? Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name is Curtis Gamble, activist for the homeless and the veterans also. I would like to, I didn't make it to the veterans program, but I would like to thank everybody that made that happen on behalf of the veterans. I myself am a veteran, so I know what it's like. I don't know if any of you guys are veterans. Are any of you guys veterans? I got a chance to experience it, and it's a wonderful thing to serve your country. I went into the Navy when I was 24 because I had said I would never go, but then one day I wanted to be a man and go serve my country because I didn't have a job. But so it worked out really great. I got a chance to learn a lot. Again, thank you, veterans, for serving. And while we're speaking about veterans, I like to talk about housing for the veterans also here in Fullerton. And right now, what we want is what LA has, which is those tiny homes. So if you guys could make that happen overnight, because it's not only for the veterans, but it's for the people that we love, that we served our country for. And we hate seeing them out here on the street struggling. There's a lady last night at the transportation center. It took her 30, 40 minutes to walk from across the street from the Amtrak station. And when she got back to her bus bench, there was some guy laying there, and she was afraid to go to her belongings. So I went over and gave the guy food and asked him to move, and he did very nicely. But that's just how desperate we need help for the people out there on the street. And I told them I would come and talk to you again today. Also, I would like to, here's the deal. I would like to, since Fullerton is not doing anything for the homeless, I would like to partner with Mary's Kitchen, because Mary's Kitchen does everything for the homeless. So if we can make this happen, because we don't have any more time. It's winter time. We don't have any more time to sit here and decide. If you're homeless, go to Mary's Kitchen. And here's what I recommend to you also, that the $2 million that we got on behalf of the homeless, if you could forward that check over to Mary's Kitchen, that would be very helpful so that people can go over there and get their money. As a matter of fact, they got this thing called a cash out. If you could just fund that money also to the people so they could go out and get them housing themselves, this $2 million would really help them during the winter. I don't recommend giving it to Elimination Foundation when they can't go to that shelter. There's no way, guys. Okay, but anyway, I want to pull item 11, 14, 16, 17, 18. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Council. I'd like to make a comment about the Union Pacific Trail Committee. I have big concerns about Mr. Bushala's involvement with that committee, being that he was appointed by Councilmember Jung, whom, as it's been stated, Bushala spent $18,000 to fight Jung's opponent in the last election. And he also has supported in various ways Council members Whitaker and Dunlap. That's not a bad thing, but when you have worked and supported 3 out of the 5 council members, you kind of expect, as Mr. Bushala himself has stated, you expect to have a certain level of attention from them in his endeavors. He has publicly stated that he's interested in buying Union Pacific Park, and he is a 30% property owner along the trail that's been mapped out. I think that it opens him up to certain conflicts of interest, and I don't understand why that's a benefit to this committee. He's also stated that he wants to make this trail accessible to vehicles and bicycles as well as pedestrians, but he also wants to minimize the trail. If you have walked the Juanita Cook Trail anytime recently, you may be aware that it can be dangerous. I walk it, friends of mine walk it regularly, and if you are not paying constant attention to everything going on around you, it's not like you can just go out there and casually stroll and lose yourself in your thoughts. You have to really be paying attention not to get taken out by a bike rider who may not be paying attention to you. So minimizing the scope of a trail in an area that is already short on trails and green areas, and opening it up to vehicles and bicycles is just an accident waiting to happen. So his plans don't seem to be in the best interest of this community. I'm sure they're in the best interest of his family, and that's totally logical, totally fine, but it doesn't make him a great candidate to be on a committee that's going to have ongoing input into the future of this trail and Union Pacific Park. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, you said that we do have one Zoom caller?
We have 2 hands raised now on
Okay,
Zoom.
great.
And Damian Lloyd, you should be able to unmute.
Wonderful. Good evening, Council. My name is Damian Lloyd, and I wanted to address something that came up a month ago when a local activist stood in front of this council and told blatant lies and slandered my wife and me. Unfortunately, that was not the worst of it, as it's my belief that he concocted those lies on the behalf of Councilman Zara, which is simply despicable. This is the kind of behavior that is making our democracy crumble before our eyes, because people refuse to engage in civil dialogue with people who they believe think differently than they do. If you're here taking your time from your busy life to bring your concerns to council, you automatically have my respect, whether or not I agree with you. We are all much more similar than we are different, and I am always open to a civil, well-intentioned dialogue. That said, the next time I discover that a council member is trying to slander my family, we will take civil action. I ask our council members and our community to rise above this kind of lowbrow, bottom-feeding behavior. Thank you.
And Jane Rand, you should be okay to unmute.
Hi, actually, this is Matt Leslie borrowing Jane's computer. Thank you for hearing from me tonight. I've heard people upset tonight over what they perceive as the influence of campaign contributions, both in the form of direct contributions to campaigns and as independent expenditures. This goes on all the time with campaigns. There was a $10,000 campaign contribution made directly from a prominent landowner in the city to a former member of the council we heard from tonight in a past election cycle. And that's something that I don't particularly like anywhere in any campaign. I imagine a lot of people share my concern because even if it's not direct influence, it certainly presents the perception of purchasing influence. And I would like to suggest that we, as many other cities have done, adopt campaign contribution limits. Right now, there is no limit in Fullerton for how much you can donate to a city council campaign. And I would like to ask the Fullerton City Council and Mayor Whitaker to please agendize an item to consider adopting campaign finance limits for these offices. And if the council is itself not willing to make that determination, or if it cannot, I'm not sure if they're able to, please consider putting it on the ballot in the general election in 2022. Thank you.
And that is all the Zoom speakers.
Okay, we'll bring the item back to the council. First of all, Mr. Acting City Manager, is there anything you'd care to respond to?
No, just traditionally, I think we canceled the first January meeting.
Yes, I was going to bring that up, but
I'm sorry.
I'm glad you did. Go ahead.
So we'll be coming back to council with a formal action for that.
And let's see, my understanding is that would be January 4th, right? Which is only one Monday after the New Year's holiday. We have traditionally gone dark on that date. Now, we probably need to make a determination tonight because that may impact the next couple of agendas that we deal with to make sure that nothing falls between the cracks. So if that's something you'd like some direction from the council, we can do that in council comments.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. And are there any other reports by members of staff? Seeing none, we'll come to the council. Who cares to lead off? I see Councilmember Silva at the ready here.
Yeah, I was, too bad Marilyn Harris left. I was going to thank her for all the work she has done on the veterans, ceremony and the work she did on the Korean War Memorial. I happened to be out there a few times, and I saw her out there looking at it, directing, and then at the last end, instructing the workers there how to raise, in what order and what position to raise the flag. So, Marilyn, if you're out there, thank you. And I also want to thank the Korean War Memorial Committee, who committed about $1 million to create that great venue. And I'm going to just take a moment of personal privilege and thank Joe Pack, who was a member of that. And he has been talking about this for about 10 years. And he persevered, and with the help of a lot of other people, got it done. So thank you for all that. And then finally, well, not finally, but one more thing. Hillcrest Park, it was mentioned, and it's alive. We were out there this weekend, and there are people hiking. Fullerton Hills Softball is out there. People are visiting the War Memorial. People are at the fountain. It's a
the
very
stairs are active.
the stairs. We almost got run over a couple of times because my dog was going too slow. But anyway, it's a great park. It's very active. So if you haven't been out there, please take a day or morning and go out and explore Hillcrest Park. And finally, I want to thank all the staff and everyone for all the help all the work they put in on Veterans Day and all the work they put into Hillcrest. And I want to wish everyone a very happy and festive Thanksgiving week and enjoy the festivities and enjoy your families.
Thank you, Councilmember. Yes, Councilmember Jung.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I wanted to begin this evening by thanking Congress for passing the transformative infrastructure bill. California will be allocated over $25 billion for road repair alone. I want to encourage our city staff and our county and state partners to find every avenue for funding for high-speed internet access for all our children in our community, for our airport, for shoring up our city's cybersecurity, for more EV charging stations to help mitigate the impacts of climate change, and obviously, and most importantly, funding to improve our roads and sidewalks. While our congressional representative may not have voted for its passage for whatever the reason, I do encourage her and her staff to hunt for opportunities to bring justified monies to back home to her district and assist us in modernizing one of the oldest cities in Orange County. There are certainly times when the future looks bleak. It is this grand pursuit of trying to form a more perfect union that's worth the effort that we pursue this. It has been for each and every one of us up here, I think, because the job demands tremendous time, enormous energy to do well. So the overriding question that we all have to consider that remains is, how do we work together to get the big things done for our city and its residents? People are quick to criticize elected officials for seemingly maintaining the status quo, yet these same critics are blind to the distraction of misguided elected officials who routinely agitate a concerned public with misinformation. Cynicism is the recourse of cowards. Good governance should not be about this party or that party, and it should disappoint every resident in Fullerton that some unscrupulous politicians belong to the me, myself, and I party. However, I'm hopeful that that changes, but if not, 2022 is obviously an election year and change will be welcome then. I also want to thank Sesame Street for debuting its first Asian American character. It's a 7-year-old Korean American girl named Ji-young. She will be introduced on a Thanksgiving Day special. I call attention to this because representation matters, and this Korean American character may bring hope to Asian American children everywhere who will now see someone that looks like them on one of the country's most iconic children's programs. November is also Cancer Awareness Month for the stomach cancer. I call attention to this evening because my father was diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer not so long ago. I recall vividly the oncologist giving my father the news and advising him to get his affairs in order. I have terrific appreciation for American medical care because while my father could not manage to weather one round of chemo and the surgery that followed removed a significant portion of his stomach, 5 years later he remains alive to watch his grandchildren and now his great-grandchildren grow. So I want to thank all the doctors and nurses in our community. The gift of life is impossible to quantify, and certainly I shouldn't be the one to do it, but please accept my profound gratitude. The Metropolitan Water District declared a drought emergency last week following the second driest year on record. I urge Fullerton residents to take water conservation measures like not washing sidewalks and driveways and watering lawns every other day or not at all. We need to take immediate action because this drought is projected to only worsen, and our conservation efforts today will make a difference tomorrow. I also would like to wish all our Fullertonians a happy and blessed Thanksgiving. We have had so much to be thankful for as a nation and a city. Having lost so much in the last year and a half, it's a welcome opportunity to celebrate grace and life. Lastly, in honor of Rivalry Week, I want to remind those in our community that USC has held the Victory Bell 48 years, UCLA only 32. Scoreboard from last year's game was 52-35 SC. 10 years ago, it was 50-0 SC. Fight on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Can I just add before the next comment that they still haven't put out a good professional quarterback in the NFL either, but we can talk about that later.
Which of you cares to go next here?
Go ahead.
Sure. Councilmember Zara.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone who came out to the Veterans Parade and event, and then the Korean War Memorial as well, and then all those who were instrumental in making it happen, including our staff who worked really hard for this. So it was wonderful to see such an such a monumentous occasion, especially after being cooped up and last year and missing that parade. It is supporting our veterans and celebrating their lives is very special to me as an immigrant, and so I really look forward to this day of celebrating freedom and those who fought for it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Actually have something to say tonight, a little different from a traditional comment in that, I wanted to reflect on something that took place over the weekend. Law enforcement officers have a tough job. They're on the front line keeping our community safe. And in recent years, law enforcement has come under attack largely through rhetoric from radical activists seeking to defund the police and in some cases do away with police altogether. And for some reason, that's gotten attention. But, I've always dismissed this as childish and unrealistic. So you can imagine my surprise this weekend when, along with many members of the community, I received a mass text from the Fullerton Police Union labeling me and the mayor as anti-police, suggesting that both of us had an interest in defunding the police. I wasn't necessarily surprised that the union lied and misrepresented the truth in order to put money in their pocket, although it certainly offended me. But it surprised me that they used the word defund, given what that means in today's vernacular. Literally removing police departments or inserting social workers into doing such an important job to keep our community safe. And at a time when distrust in government, and in some cases law enforcement, is at an all-time high, the police union, behind their president, Officer Pedroza, chose to use a mass text to the entire city to share a complete and total fabrication of any discussion that's ever taken place on this dais. In fact, since joining the council, every purchase request that's been submitted by the police department has been approved. Any grants that the police department has applied for or to have also been approved. And recently, after learning that the city's camera system had been down for almost 2 years, I spearheaded the effort to get that funded ahead of any other budgetary items. And I would note, though not intended to be a personal attack, that 2 members of this council sat by, had received that same notice, and did nothing during that time frame. The petty politics of local government is exactly what deters, I think, most people from getting involved. The lies, the bullying, the pressure, and previous leaders have caved. And our city's conditions largely reflect that, whether you're looking at our roads or our finances. So to the Fullerton police officers who go out and work hard to keep us safe every day, I'm grateful to you for the good work that you do. But to the union bullies who want to lie to our community and divide our community, there's no room for that in Fullerton. My hope is that you realize that sooner than later so that we can get to working together for the good of our community.
Thank you. And I will piggyback on your comments there since I've been affected as well. I find it almost amusing that I'm being accused of wanting to defund the police, since at so many functions, beginning early this year in my term as mayor, including the Stop Asian Hate gathering that we had out in front of City Hall here, I was the only speaker that actually laid out that it's craziness to talk about defunding the police, that we all need good police, and that that's no way to go. So at very many different events throughout the year, speeches, open council sessions, I have repeatedly said that I do not concur with those who want to defund the police and, as you said, convert that activity to social work rather than policing. So I think you're right about local politics. It makes for very strange bedfellows because certainly you and I are members of a party that does not embrace this notion whatsoever. So I think it is lamentable that the FPOA engages in such fictional activity. And it's led to me having to meet and discuss this with many new people. Actually, I've created some pretty good relationships getting back to people on this and reassuring them that that is not my agenda whatsoever. So thank you for that. To move on to something positive, I wanted to build on what Council Member Silva said, which was that Korean War Memorial ceremony was first rate. It was absolutely excellent. My kudos to the committee the Korean War Memorial Committee, all the members and their hard work over almost a decade to be able to land this and make it a reality. All the donors, so many donors, who contributed to create a memorial of quality here in the city of Fullerton. I have to chuckle just a little bit that Irvine and some of their officials were there, and they were lamenting that their city hadn't moved swiftly enough to be able to secure that within Irvine, originally at the Great Park. But I think, I can't congratulate enough all those people, and also our city staff for making Hillcrest Park just so presentable on Veterans Day. It was wonderful, and so many of the attendees, estimated over 300 attendees, many from Los Angeles and from throughout the region, first time that they had encountered Hillcrest Park. They were very complimentary. And it's an example of when everyone puts their shoulder to the wheel, we can have something that we're proud of here in the city. And we're certainly proud of those, just under 40,000 veterans who gave their all in the Korean War. And they're all listed by name on that monument. So one last thing, Councilmember Silva, your wife had a real excellent addition to that ceremony by having the 13-year-old girl from Korea get up and speak. And, she goes to school in Korea, and it was amazing, the message that she delivered. That was outstanding.
I will let her know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And let's see. I guess we'll cover most of what else I have to comment on. I just want to note that before our next meeting, which will be on December 7th, we will all have an opportunity to hopefully spend some time with family over the Thanksgiving holiday. And so I wish everyone a very wonderful and enjoyable and memorable Thanksgiving. And with that, we will go to the consent calendar. I would like to pull item number 3 only for purposes of clarification and a brief discussion. Earlier, it was requested that item number 6 be pulled.
I'd move the balance.
Okay. With that, we could call for a roll call. Madam Clerk.
Are you also pulling items 11 and 14 as requested?
Oh.
By Curtis Gamble?
Mr. Gamble made a request.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, I missed that. Thanks.
So
Yes.
we'll be pulling items 3, 6, 11, and 14.
Thank you for the correction. Okay.
Okay, and that was,
So we have a motion to move the balance in a second.
yes. Councilmember Jung.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Aye.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap.
Aye.
And Mayor Whitaker.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
And I'd like to take these consent items now, not kick them to the back of the agenda, if that's okay with everyone. The first one, item number 3, and please bear with me on this. This was one that I had proposed on behalf of the Orange County Water District. And this is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fullerton supporting federal PFAS legislation that protects ratepayers and water wastewater agencies. And there are many whereases here. I will identify a few. I hope that the council members have had a chance to analyze this. But it describes PFAS and the threat it is to our water supplies, local water supplies. It says, whereas PFAS have been detected in the Orange County groundwater basin managed by the Orange County Water District and are estimated to cost Orange County more than $1 billion over 30 years, a cost that will likely increase over time. Whereas ratepayers, including those from the City of Fullerton, are at risk from pending PFAS legislation and associated PFAS costs, and water agencies and stakeholders must take action to inform members of Congress of these devastating impacts. Therefore, all PFAS-related legislation must exempt water and wastewater agencies from any liability for PFAS cleanup costs. Whereas a water utility such as Fullerton's that complies with applicable and appropriate federal management and treatment standards must not bear responsibility for current and future costs associated with a PFAS cleanup. And given the potential for federal legislation such as the PFAS Action Act of 2021, that's H.R. 2467, to expose water agencies that simply receive and treat water supplies with across-the-board liability for PFAS-related cleanups when they have no responsibility for the presence of PFAS. An explicit exemption from Superfund cleanup liability must be made for water and wastewater agencies. Under existing law, the U.S. EPA ensures that public health benefits of new drinking water standards are reasonably balanced with the compliance costs that water system ratepayers will ultimately incur. And eliminating this analysis would burden ratepayers of all income levels with astronomical costs to comply with drinking water standards. And so whereas OCWD and the City of Fullerton support providing direct grant funding for PFAS remediation to water and wastewater agencies as provided in the Senate-passed Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, H.R. 3684. Now therefore, the City Council of the City of Fullerton resolves that the City Council, City of Fullerton hereby supports these federal PFAS policy principles to protect water, wastewater agencies and their ratepayers. The City of Fullerton calls upon the Orange County Congressional Delegation and California Senatorial Delegation to cast votes implementing these public policy positions. Now that's the end of our resolution that the council will vote on here. But I wanted to add that, you know, California's congressional delegation is certainly the 800-pound gorilla in the House of Representatives. And I can't understand why any member of the California delegation would not comply with our wishes in this resolution in order to hold the polluters accountable ultimately through legal actions for the cleanup and to prevent our ratepayers from being hit with those astronomical costs over time. So that is the bulk of item number 3, and with that, I would invite any public comment to this item. Okay.
Jane Rands, you're unmuted. Or Matt, if that's you on the phone.
It's actually Jane this time. Thank you, Lucinda.
They're keeping us.
Good evening, Mayor Whitaker and Council. I have a question that I didn't hear addressed in the resolution that I think is not directly related to the request for amnesty or being held responsible, our local water agency, nor is it about the additional funding, asking to have it directed towards PFAS cleanup. But it is a question about the existing Superfund site that the EPA already has for the
VOCs.
North Basin plume, for the North Basin plume. When I spoke with the EPA, they said that it included any contaminants in their project that they would help clean up and help find responsible parties. I was wondering if there's any understanding of what that current process might provide in the way of funding for the PFAS cleanup where there's overlap with the North Basin plume.
Yeah, I'd be happy to respond to that. Is that your primary question? Oh, well, I'll assume
yes.
that it is.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, the VOCs were causing some problems with well closures, and they're creeping fairly slowly across the Orange County groundwater basin. And there were efforts to try to take the more concentrated areas out of the basin. And that's been tied up with a lot of legal action. The problem with PFAS is we've had numerous wells that have been shut down completely, that are not able to provide groundwater. City of Yorba Linda lost all of their wells. We've been affected here in Fullerton as well, but numerous wells throughout Orange County are being shut down because of PFAS. So that action by US EPA will ultimately end in certain litigation and costs which are put upon the polluters to help fund that activity, but it'll be over many years. And the lead time on PFAS just simply doesn't allow that. Right now, City of Yorba Linda is purchasing all imported water from MWD, which is more than twice the cost. And so there are other areas in Orange County, Garden Grove, and other cities that are moving swiftly to create expensive ways of getting the PFAS out of the water. In this case, the Orange County Water District is fronting about $250 million in doing that. And eventually that may find its way into rates, either charged by OCWD or by our own water utility here in Fullerton. So it's a little bit different what's going on with PFAS in that regard. I don't know if that's clear or not.
And then, Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Sure.
Yeah, and just to add on that, because the government wants to make water agencies and wastewater agencies become a polluter, we will be liable and we will be in the lawsuits
Yes,
for
you're
that.
speaking for the Sand District as well.
Yeah, and just to add on that, as a member of the Sanitation District, wastewater, and the chair of the Legislative Committee, we are pursuing meetings with our congressional delegates here in Southern California and the senators. So we will be meeting with them and explaining to them that we, the agencies, did not create these chemicals. We are not the polluters. And just like the airports, we should be exempt from any liability because of these chemicals. So we will be doing that.
It's a principle long held in air pollution, where only the polluter is held accountable, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, because we're wholesalers of water ultimately to even the Sand District works on GWRS to help recharge the basin.
Right.
So the water came to us polluted. We didn't add the pollutants.
Yeah.
And that's what's wrong. And that's why, as much as any of us, even individuals out there, can lean on members of our congressional and senatorial delegations to help lead the way in Washington, D.C., that's really what we're asking for here.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And with that, I'll move the item if there's no more comments.
I'll second.
Did we have any other Zoom? Okay, excellent. All right, we're ready for a roll call.
Councilmember Jung.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Aye.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap. And Mayor Whitaker.
Aye, and thank you, council members. Appreciate that very much. We're at item number 6 on the consent calendar.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Alice Loya, Parks and Recreation Department. Angela Lindstrom, one of the Parks and Recreation Commissioners, had a question on the agenda item, which is 2 resolutions from grants that have already been awarded to the city that would just allow us to continue with the acquisition of neighborhoods 1 and 3 in West Coyote Hills that should be closing before December 31st. So I'd like to invite Ms. Lindstrom up to ask her question.
Sure, please.
I actually was going to speak as a member of the public for public comment, so I'm going to speak through that persona first, and I'm going to get to my question. But first, just a note of gratitude. First of all, good evening, council members, and thank you for introducing me, Alice. My name is Angela Lindstrom again, and I have been a Fullerton resident for about 21 years, a volunteer of the Friends of Coyote Hills for nearly that long. Our mission is to save all 510 acres of West Coyote Hills as a park and preserve for now and future generations. The resolutions before you tonight is a culmination of that vision. Nearly half of West Coyote Hills, the side that is east of Gilbert, Idaho, is about to be purchased by the city using state and private foundation funds. While we haven't always seen eye to eye, the Friends, the City of Fullerton, Chevron Pacific Coast Homes, and members of the community can all celebrate this achievement. I could be wrong, but I believe this is the single most of state funds that the city has ever received for any one project. A big thanks to our State Senator Josh Newman and Assemblywoman Sharon Quirk Silva. Our work is not finished. The Friends continue to explore the acquisition of the remainder of West Coyote Hills, the portion that is west of Gilbert, Idaho, to create a unique natural open space for Park Poor, North Orange County. Thank you, Senator Newman, Assembly Quirk Silva, and Councilmember Jung for your leadership and collaboration, and I look forward to working with all of you on that continued exploration. Parks have always played a critical role as free recreational spaces, especially for low-income communities. Studies have shown that parks and open spaces provide people with mental health benefits. I'm sure that you and many others experienced this benefit during the COVID shutdown. And in the larger scheme of the world, with the existential threat of climate change, we're doing the right thing here. Now back to business, to my question. On the staff report, page 3, it states that the city will use grant funds remaining after acquisition for maintenance and operation of the recreational trails and the interpretive center to be built on the city-owned Robert Ward Nature Preserve. I'd like to get clarification whether the statement is saying that the approximately $9 million remaining after the purchase of the neighborhoods 1 and 3 can only be used within the 73-acre Robert Ward Nature Preserve. Secondly, I'd like to get clarification on how the city plans to use those leftover funds, and or if there are state restrictions on how it can be used. Can it be used anywhere within West Coyote Hills? Can it be used for other parks and trails in the city? Are the funds restricted to parks and trails, or can it be used for other city operations? Thank you.
Oh, you want to answer that now, or should we check Zoom calls?
I don't see any hands raised
Okay.
in Zoom.
All right, please. Thank you.
Thank you. The remaining funds are remaining from the state budget trailer bill from 2018, so it's known as state general funds. The only restriction to using those funds are it has to be used for West Coyote Hills, whether it's going to be acquisition, program, maintenance, or operations. So after we purchase neighborhoods 1 and 3, we do have an endowment from the seller of $3.8 million that would help us to maintain and operate the trails, but it won't last forever. So we would like to apply the remaining amount to help us to offer educational programs at the Interpretive Center, to pay for the maintenance and operations of that facility and of the trails throughout West Coyote Hills, whether they're on the east side or the west side. That's the purpose of those funds. We
Thank
cannot
you.
use the funds for anything other than West Coyote Hills.
Thank you for the explanation. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And with that, I would entertain a motion on this.
I'll move the item.
Okay, moved by the Mayor Pro Tem.
Second, sir.
And seconded by Councilmember Jung. Roll call.
Councilmember Jung.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap.
Aye.
Mayor Whitaker.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
And we had item number 11. Is that next? Is that Mr. Gamble who asked?
Yeah. Yeah, we don't need the
Or
staff
agenda
reports,
item
ask
11?
questions, I guess. and we
Yeah.
Get through it.
I just wanted information on this item, item 11. I
Okay.
just want to get updated information.
Any particular questions or direction that we could get a response to?
Well, no, no. I just didn't want it to get passed over because I just wanted to get some information about it.
Okay, which?
I mean, yeah, I just wanted some information. It's on the agenda, right?
Yes.
So I just wanted to hear about it. Can I get a response to it?
We have someone here to.
Mayor and members of the City Council, Dave Roseman, City Traffic Engineer. This item before you tonight is for the installation of a 40-foot yellow zone in front of the property that's located at 4010 to 4016 West Commonwealth. There's a parking impacted area where the south side of the street has parking but is frequently filled, and the north side of the street is across from the airport is the airport property, which doesn't have any parking. Staff confirmed that the area is very little on-street parking available, and staff's professional opinion, the addition of a yellow curb designating the area as a 20-minute loading and unloading would provide short-term parking for the delivery of and pickup of goods and passengers. The business owner at 4010 West Commonwealth expressed support for this restriction at a Transportation and Circulation Commission meeting, and the commission voted unanimously to concur with staff's recommendation.
Thank you for the explanation. Is that good? And so with that, I would entertain.
I'll make the motion, sir, to move the
I'll
item.
second.
Okay. And I wanted to make sure there are no other public commenters.
And no hands on Zoom.
Thank you. All right, we're ready for a roll call then.
Councilmember Jung.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva. Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap.
Aye.
Mayor Whitaker.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
And then item number 14, Mr. Gamble, you had?
Curtis Gamble, activist. Again, on item number 14, again, can I just get a response on that also? Thanks.
No hands on Zoom.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Derek Weiss, Acting City Engineer. This is really just an administrative item. We were recently contacted by Orange County Transportation Authority, and we currently have 4 active regional traffic signal synchronization projects, and 3 of them were in past capital improvement programs, so they were not included in the one recently approved by the City Council. And so OCTA contacted us and asked us to include those in the 7-year capital improvement program that we provide to them each year in order to maintain eligibility with our Measure M funding. So again, the projects are Gilbert, Idaho, on Malvern, Chapman, Orange Thorpe, and then the 4th one, which was included in the recent one, is on Harbor. So that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to respond.
Well,
to any
thank you for that.
questions.
So in a nutshell, it's the council needs to act on this to round out that list which we've provided, right?
Yes,
The
sir.
OCTA, all right. Is that good, Mr. Gamble? Yes. All right, thank
I'll
you.
move the item.
I'll second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap and seconded by Councilmember Jung. We're ready for a roll call.
Councilmember Jung.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap. Mayor Whitaker.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
We are now ready for our regular business items, items 16, 17, and 18. Item number 16 is the Orange County Transportation Authority 2021 Pavement Management Relief Funding Program. Oh, my goodness. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I looked over it completely. We do have a public hearing item, item number 15. City of Fullerton Community Facilities District Number 3, The Pines at Sunrise Village. This is continuance of public hearing.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you may recall back on October 5th, the council adopted 2 resolutions stating its intention to establish a community facilities district for this for the proposed Pines development project to finance certain public facilities. The council at that time also set November 16th, tonight, as the public hearing date for the formation of the CFD, for the formal formation. Since the project entitlements will not be heard by the council until December 7th, the applicant has requested that the city continue this item to the public hearing of December 21st. As such, staff has recommended the council adopt the attached resolution continuing the public hearing for CFD number 3 to December 21st.
And this requires me to open a public hearing and
Prior to the public, we open the public hearing, adopt the resolution, allow the public to speak on the question, on the question of the continuance only.
okay, so I will open the public hearing, this continuance, and any members of the public wishing to speak to this item at this time?
Item number
15.
15, then a motion to continue the hearing.
And no Zoom callers?
No Zoom.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to continue.
Move the item.
Okay.
Second, sir.
Moved and seconded, so we'll take a vote on that.
Councilmember Jung.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Aye.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap.
Aye.
Mayor Whitaker.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
So this item is continued to December 7th,
21.
or December 21st. Thanks.
No problem.
Glad you're keeping me on track.
Yeah.
Now we're ready for our general business items. So the regular business, item number 16, which I previously described, Orange County Transportation Authority 2021 Pavement Management Relief Funding Program. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Mr. Grantham.
Dave Grantham, Principal Civil Engineer upstairs in the Engineering Department. Top left. No, go up. I know, I realized that once I was doing it. I know. Okay, let me get started. So I'm here to talk about the Orange County Transportation Center Authority, 2021 Pavement Management Relief Funding Program. So what is it? It is a one-time funding that all of Orange County cities in the County of Orange will be receiving for the maintenance and rehab of streets. The funding is coming from the feds, so it's federal money, part of the pandemic relief funding. OCTA received the money. They're distributing almost 11 million of that out to the cities. The minimum allocation each agency is getting is 200,000. Fullerton is getting a little less than 410,000. Now, with any funding that we receive, especially federal funding, there are restrictions. We can't just use it for how we feel like we want to use it. So let's start with the type of project. This is actually pretty broad. It's the typical pavement maintenance items that we can do, preventive maintenance, rehab, or reconstruction. Expenses, there are restrictions. It starts at construction, so anything we've done up till construction is not eligible for reimbursement. So that would be the time I'm spending right now, the design, bidding, and award. Once we get past that, then expenses become reimbursable. So that includes the construction contractor's cost, any staff time during construction, including materials testing, geotechnical survey, things like that. It does include construction if the project wants to build a bicycle lane. And it also includes the typical items you do when you do a regular pavement rehab, which is all the concrete work and constructing ADA ramps to current requirements. So what streets are eligible? They are requiring that the street must be classified as a minor collector or above. So basically what that means, no local streets are allowed. On the screen you can see all the highlighted streets are the eligible streets for the city of Fullerton. Just quickly, the tentative schedule. The big date really is the bottom date, April 1st, 2023, where we have to get approval from Caltrans. Caltrans is the bookkeeper for the feds in California. And the little issue with Caltrans at the moment is it takes quite a while to get your paperwork through Caltrans. So really, I have to be done with this project design probably the end of 2022 to make sure we get our paperwork in, to make sure we are obligating our funds and we can move forward with construction. Quite honestly, I don't see that as being a problem, but I just want to point that out as that really is the deadline for us rather than April 1st. Excuse me. So how are we picking the street? This is what staff came up with to talk to INRAC about. So funding would be used as a standalone project. Quite frankly, $410,000 sounds like a lot, but for a street project, it's not. So I really want to make it its own little standalone project, not adding that money to another project. Reason being, as I just mentioned, we do have time restrictions, so I want to keep this its own small standalone project. Also, we spent a lot of time at INRAC discussing what streets and how we would rehabilitate streets. And there's actually 5 guidelines that we've come up with, and I think 2 of those are applicable here. One of them is the fact that arterial streets, we want to do grind and overlay rather than reconstruction. And policy number 3, how we select the streets. And I want to point, this is the entire list, but what we're really focusing on here is the streets only, bicycle lanes, the number of side streets, because that limits the amount of concrete work, so you can put more money on the actual pavement, the PCI rating, and then the utility work, which is we typically do. So based on that, I took these 6 projects to INRAC. And the reason I picked these segments is I looked at $410,000, and that really limits the length of the street segment that I can really do with that amount of money. So trying to work my way around the city where I could come up with those lengths of streets, this is what I came up with, the 6 projects. And they're listed in alphabetical order right there. So the details of each street. I kind of show the PCI, I show the limits where they're at, the construction costs breaking down. Just want to point out, contingency, we always have contingency in our projects. The goal is never to use it. And inspection can definitely be a variable cost, and design can be a variable cost. The comments section, I do want to point out that the vast majority of these have rather old water mains in the segments. And where I've put like the Tbra Vista Junior High or Cal State Fullerton is intended to indicate that it's in the region or in the vicinity of those schools. Commonwealth Avenue, I just want to point out the extra there is we would have to do a pretty significant modification to the median at Chapman to fulfill ADA requirements. Gilbert Street is in a disadvantaged area. And State College Boulevard I added because I have the geotech report for that. It's at the north end of the city. It would join the city limits of Brea, and Brea has redone State College in that section, so it would be a nice transition. So as I indicated, we discussed this in detail at the October meeting of INRAC, the Infrastructure and Natural Resources Advisory Committee. They reviewed all 6 projects, and they came up with these recommendations. They want to make sure that we use 100% of the money that is provided to us. And the way to do that is to pick a project where essentially the construction cost is the funding amount. So in other words, we're not going to include contingency or inspection or construction management fees or costs in our distribution. So that being said, if I can go back to the details, the preferred project is Associated Road, which is north of Cal State Fullerton from Yoberlin to Bassingeri, but other alternatives would be Acacia Avenue or Commonwealth Avenue. But I will point out, very importantly, City Council has the option to select an alternative street segment if you so wish. So the action tonight, we recommend you confirm the recommended street from INRAC, which is Associated Road, and then adopt the resolution which will be submitted to OCTA. With that, I will take any questions.
I have a question. Thank you for the presentation, and always appreciate the work of INRAC and all the commissioners. The question on the final selection, I noticed that the PCI on the road on the INRAC recommendation is higher than all the other ones. Did this come up in the discussion? Is there a reason why the choice is a higher?
It may be higher, but it's still poor.
Right. No.
So it really, the discussion was all of those streets are in poor condition. I think they were really focusing on how to use the money in the most effective way, and I think that's really where the discussion landed on Associated, rather than the PCI.
Right. So some of the other choices would require additional monies?
Some of them may require additional money. Some of them, such as Gilbert, is a small stretch, narrow street. We probably wouldn't utilize all the money. Brookhurst Street at the 91, I actually don't recommend. We've had a lot of complaints about that, but I don't recommend it because we have to go through Caltrans, get an encroachment from Caltrans. I'm really concerned about the schedule and getting that approved. So some things dropped out. Yeah,
just a couple more questions. And these choices here, they will all also require the water mains and sewer pipes to be changed as well?
No.
Okay.
We are. That's a very good point. Thank you. At this point, we are not considering replacing the water main. These are grind and overlay. So at this point, none of these streets are programmed for water main replacement. At this point, we would be taking the risk.
So this is a risky project. Are there
It's
any
a potential risk.
Right. Are there any options that minimize this risk and maybe?
Brookhurst doesn't have a water main.
Right.
But I don't suggest that one.
Right.
If you look at it, Acacia Avenue, you've got two big water mains running down. You've got a large transmission and a large distribution. Don't want to break the transmission main for sure. That's
Right.
a steel pipe.
And then
the other ones are just regular distribution lines.
Right. And then one last question. Have you considered the traffic flow and intensity on each of these streets? Because I think Commonwealth, for example, is a pretty intense road when it comes to traffic. It's highly traveled, as opposed to, I think, Yorba Linda, that segment isn't as traveled as, let's say, some of the other ones.
I mean, I think Associated takes more traffic probably during the school year than it does the summer. It does see a lot of peak hour activity in the morning and the afternoon, but people getting to the freeway. Commonwealth, I think, probably gets more traffic on average during the day. The discussion with Interact did not really go through traffic volumes. It really was focused on the money and the best, the most practical way of using the money, for lack of a better term.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have a couple questions. It says the PMRF program helps offset the loss of Measure 2 local fair share revenues. As you mentioned earlier, $409,000 doesn't go very far with pavement repair nowadays. So my question is, how does this compare with what we've received in prior years?
Well, we've never received. This is a one-time.
Right.
Typically, a local fair share is about, I want to say 2.5 million.
I was going to say about 5 or 6 times as much, yeah.
Yeah. So this is just intended to be, look, the revenues have decreased for your general fund and M2. We're just trying to find a way to help you out.
Right. I mean, we still all pay the M2 tax, of course. The other question I had was, it says OCTA received $14.951 million with $10.932 million going to the program. That's a pretty big haircut there, isn't it? Where does that other $4 million go?
They did not provide details on where they, at least in the correspondence they provided to us. It certainly will be online, and I can look that up if you request.
I'm just trying to get a feel of how we're flowing. I know that their revenues are down on M2, but this doesn't go very far at all. Really doesn't. I was going to put in a pitch for Brookhurst near the 91 freeway because that is heavily trafficked and it's in very bad state of disrepair, and the fact that there's no water main there is an extra bonus as well. But if we have to deal with more layers of bureaucracy from Caltrans, then that could negate some of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Mr. John.
Sir, would you give me kind of an idea of why NRAC, while they did say it was an alternative, they didn't choose to make it their primary, the Commonwealth project? I think that's more bang for our buck. Is that not correct in terms of how much we are able to do there?
I think if you look at the detail sheets, if we get $410,000, we've estimated the construction cost of Associated at $420. I think it just more closely fit the dollars that we have available or being allocated.
Thank you.
Seeing no more questions, thank you. I would invite public comment to this item if anyone wishes to speak to it.
Again, my name is Tony Package, and you all know me by now, whether you want to or not. I live in that area, and I use these highways all the time. The Associated Yerba Linda to Baston area is a feeder for the 57 and is close to Cal State Fullerton and State College, and I find that it's pretty busy most of the time. The Acacia, and that's where I live at Acacia, the Commonwealth, the Chapman, they're number one, we have a school there, and it's heavily trafficked by buses going up in that down that area, plus all the parents coming picking up their kids, dropping them off and picking them up and everything like that. And it's really I drive up that segment to Chapman practically every day, and every day I want to pull my car over once I get through that and see if my car has got a flat tire or something, because it's really nasty. The Commonwealth of Chapman area, well, just about 4 or 5 years ago, we did some work there. We restriped it and we did some work there. So I don't feel that's necessary. I think for the safety of the school and the parents and the kids, I would suggest the Acacia Commonwealth of Chapman. That would be my response. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Kurt Johnston. I'd like to make a suggestion, a proposal, if that had already been suggested. There's a great need for a bike lane / sidewalk going from the bottom of Harbor Boulevard by the bottom of the dam up to St. Jude Hospital. There's almost very frequently there's people that walk that at night. They'll have a flashlight. It's a very dangerous place to walk actually on the street. So I guess the funds, if they're allowed for a bike lane, would include a retaining wall, because of that the dirt comes down the hillside, and it would be like maybe a sidewalk / bike trail. And the nice thing about that is it would complete a major biking artery, which is part of the Fullerton Loop. Right now, a lot of people cut through the Fullerton Dam area, and they go over by the youth hostel, and they cut through the hill, and then they dart across the street. What this would allow is a thoroughfare that would go all the way up Harbor, and then it connects to another bike trail, which starts right there at the hospital. It's a new bike trail that goes by the tennis courts and cuts behind the hospital. So, and also there's a proposed dog park there, which maybe people could walk, if that was a thoroughfare, they could walk all the way to the dog park. So that's maybe a suggested proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone else cares to speak, please line up on the wall. Yes, Mr. Gamble.
Curtis Gamble, activist for the homeless and the veterans. I was listening, and I like what OCTA has to offer. So I just want to say that I approve of working with them. I just think that that is great. That is a great opportunity. I'm a former OCTA bus driver for 14 years, and anytime we get an opportunity to work with the OCTA, I think that's the greatest partner that we can have as far as working with them. These streets and everything are used heavily by the OCTA bus drivers and the fire department and the police department. So anything that we can do to make this city better by working with them, I support 100%, and especially, picking out a street that we want to get funded based upon what funding they're offering tonight. So again, I'm very grateful to have OCTA at the meeting tonight, helping out, willing to assist Fullerton. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Are there Zoom callers?
We have 2 hands raised at the moment. Jane Rance, you are unmuted.
Thank you. After attending the INRAC meeting and trying to advocate for the need to consider the needs of cyclists and pedestrians in the city, I really appreciate that INRAC, I see that they do see the need for prioritizing bike lanes in part of their decision-making process. Though I would like to also consider also bike routes in the future. But those three top priorities, I highly agree with and appreciate that they've prioritized them, and I just want to encourage the council to honor the three top recommendations of INRAC.
One more hand raised. Jane Reifer, you should be okay to unmute.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is Jane Reifer. And I noticed that in the project that's happening at Euclid and Rosecrans, that the Shop Off Realty Investments Company is going to be repaving Euclid from Rosecrans down to Bastonchury for their to help mitigate their traffic impacts. And I know that Goodman Logistics is repaving Kimberly and also Orangethorpe, both sides, as part of their traffic mitigations. I'm wondering why the Hub project, the Hub Fullerton project at State College and Commonwealth is not handling any of the streets around theirs, whether they had absolutely zero impact to the area surrounding them. I'm hoping that maybe that segment is not funded by OCTA, but rather by the Hub development project. That would be my suggestion, that would be looked into and see whether that can be covered a different way than as part of the OCTA, rather than using the OCTA funds. So if that can be discussed when the Hub is brought to planning and then back up to City Council, that would be great. Thank you.
And there are no more speakers in Zoom.
Okay, we'll bring the item back to council.
I'd move the item.
Yeah, I'll second that.
As NRAC recommends, correct?
As the NRAC
Thank you.
recommendation, yes.
Yeah.
And seeing no more comment, a roll call.
Councilmember Jung.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Aye.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap.
Aye.
Mayor Whitaker.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Item number 17, which is a homelessness response update. This was requested by Councilmembers Zara and Silva. Yes, Ms. Fritzl.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Tonight, we will present an overview of the city's homeless response and an overview of the Hope Center. So, homelessness has been increasing in California and our local cities over many years.
Excuse me, Kelly, are we going to do the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you didn't want to look at me?
We do.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And I really worked on this, so.
Is this the same, is 17 and 18 together or separate? Is it?
I'm going to,
Gotcha.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm going to address 18 in my remarks, so, but
Okay.
we're all here for, questions on 18.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Sorry, I was listening in.
Yeah, yes, I appreciate it.
So, we're on background in history. Okay. From 2017 to 2019, the city of Fullerton's unsheltered homeless count increased from 149 to 308 persons. There's many reasons why, but it's a general increase in homelessness. In addition, the city had been host to the county's cold weather shelter for over 30 years, which is now closed due to county's priorities. Homeless outreach and enforcement has been impacted by litigation over the last few years. The Boise case restricted enforcement of anti-camping laws without the availability of shelter beds. The Orange County's federal lawsuit resulted in the clearing out of the county's flood control channel, which impacted many cities. In June 2019, the city of Fullerton and the North Service Planning Area, SPA, entered into a settlement agreement on that matter. We were told that we were going to be enjoined in the case, so we settled it. So the North SPA Service Program Area just is surprising we call it a spa, consists of 12 cities, and those 12 cities signed on to the agreement that established that 250 beds were required within the entire North Spa area. And if we had the operation of the 250 beds and there were available beds, that we could enforce our anti-camping laws. And the shelters are in operation in both Buena Park and Placentia, which meets our settlement agreement. The City of Fullerton funds the 2 shelters through the SB2 Permanent Local Housing Allocation. SB2 funds vary by year, and general fund may be required to fund the shelters if SB2 funds are not sufficient. As established in the MOU, Fullerton pays 30% of the operation cost, and in year 1, Fullerton residents occupied about 13% of the beds. Now, we have been doing better in year 2. So kind of looking at Fullerton's response to homelessness. And I think it should be said that Fullerton has been a leader in our homeless response over the last 15 years. In 2006, the Homeless Collaborative was formed that included service providers and community members that were providing services to the homelessness, trying to provide better coordination. There are many and numerous services offered to the homeless, including food 7 days a week. So that has been kind of one of our biggest issues, because we provide so many services. Does that attract more homeless to come to the city? And it has been a challenge that we've been working through. In 2011, the first task force on homeless and mental health was formed. And I say first because we formed a second one later. The City of Fullerton was the first city to have designated full-time homeless liaison officer, the first to require crisis intervention training, and the first to work full-time with a mental health clinician. And this was prior to state law changing that required the crisis intervention training. So Fullerton's Police Department has been a leader in our homeless enforcement. In 2018, the city began to work with CityNet to provide homeless outreach and case management services. And the city was also the first city to provide a safe parking program. We did this right before COVID, and we extended it twice due to COVID. A second homeless ad hoc committee was formed and presented recommendations to the city council. Both reports supported a shelter, affordable housing, and services to the homeless. Years apart, but really the same desires. So what has Fullerton's homeless efforts been, especially during this COVID times? And once again, the city council, the 5 of you have been the leaders. The city established a tenant-based rental assistance program, and this was to prevent homelessness for the seniors from Rancho La Paz and Rancho Fullerton. Later, you included veterans citywide to receive tenant-based rental assistance. So the city also has provided 2 rental assistance programs to help keep residents housed through the emergency rental assistance program ran by the city, and a 3rd Tbra program ran by Pathways of Hope. These have helped over 234 families remain in their homes, receive rental assistance, utility assistance, and food. Also, a great program that the city did was Feed Fullerton, which also was a good economic development program because it helped our local restaurants. So, continuing on our city's current efforts, our homeless liaison officers and case managers. So, what are we doing now? We have 2 homeless liaison officers, which work with the Orange County mental health worker. We have had the same mental health worker for the last 10 years. Very unusual, very really knows all of our clients and is just an amazing person, so we always tell the county thank you. We have 2 new part-time homeless case managers that they proactively provide outreach and case management 5 days a week. So we ended our relationship with CityNet and we brought the case management in-house. And with that, we are receiving more services. So our case managers work with community outreach and engagement, also known as the Blue Shirts, public health staff, CalOptima, along with our nonprofits and faith-based groups. The case managers have been working with public health on COVID vaccinations for our homeless residents. And just for your information, currently approximately 10% of all calls to the police department are transient related. But this has not increased over the years. So Illumination Foundation. Illumination Foundation approached the city in 2019 to build a shelter that consisted of 60 recuperative care beds and 90 emergency shelter beds. The city provided $500,000 for tenant improvements, $500,000 to assist with the tenant improvements. Since the opening of the shelter, the city has provided another $1.6 million in operation of the shelter. Currently, we have exhausted all of our funding. IF leases the building, Illumination Foundation, and the city has approved a lease guarantee to the property building owner. Since the opening in April, 247 clients have been seen at the shelter. In addition to the numbers provided, IF has helped an additional 20 of the residents obtain housing vouchers are in the process of finding units. So Illumination Foundation has reunited 3 clients with their family, housed 6 permanently. 3 clients moved into a better setting for a higher level of care, and 3 clients were moved to transitional programs. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our police chief to discuss Project Hope.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Many of you have heard about this project because you approved funding for us to retrofit a building. But for the last 4 years, just over 4 years, we've had an endowment from the state that created the North Orange County Public Safety Task Force, which we recently renamed the Collaborative because it's become more of a collaborative effort. And there was no guarantee this year that that funding would continue. So there was a desire on the part of all the participating agencies to come together and form some synergistic place where all of us could continue to work together to provide services to our homeless neighbors. And so that's where HOPE was built, the Homeless Outreach and Proactive Engagement. We happen to have a building up here on the hill that is accommodating of that. It's been vacant for many years. And with council's approval, we got $650,000 to retrofit the building and bring it up to standards to allow staff to come. Up on the screen now is a brief history of our Public Safety Task Force. I'm pleased to say that we did get funding for 1 more year from the state, and it equates to $7.8 million over a 1-year period, and it's to endow the 11 cities. And we have 3 focus areas. So it's not all that we do is based on homelessness, but we also work on youth violence prevention, and we do reentry for offenders coming back into our community from prison. But a lion's share of what we work on as the collaborative is to synergistically respond to homelessness in the North Orange County area. So the idea behind HOPE is really the right resource, right person at the right time. Everybody here that has encountered our homeless neighbors or those who have experienced homelessness know that sometimes there can be a gap in service. We could encounter someone on the street that says they're ready for services on a Friday night at 8 p.m., and we're going to tell them, or the outreach provider is going to tell them, hey, we'll meet you here on Monday morning at 8 a.m. And oftentimes that connection never happens. And so the idea behind HOPE is to supersize the ability of all of the North Spa cities to have people available right when someone's ready to receive the services and get them into that continuum of care. So that's really the idea behind the HOPE Center. Some of the partners that we've been introduced to through this process, as Kelly mentioned, we have a PERT clinician that rides with us. His name is Hector. He's employed by the County of Orange, and we've had him for probably about a decade, and he does tremendous work with those in our homeless community and others who are in mental health crisis. The proximity of this center to St. Jude gives us a unique opportunity to work with them as a partner. We've had some initial conversations. I don't want to say that they've committed to anything, but we're looking at expanding the offering from the HOPE Center to include a community paramedicine model. We're working with the fire department as well as St. Jude on trying to make that a reality. We had a very great meeting with Cal Optima. As you all know, they have a tremendous amount of services that they can provide, and we're currently adapting some of our offerings to allow for better access for Cal Optima members. The blue shirts, as Kelly mentioned, the folks that go out and do the outreach, especially those who are in mental health crisis, we're offering them space in the center so that they can be available when we need them to go and do outreach, and we've had tremendous response from them so far. And I have to do a quick shout out to Supervisor Chafee, who has really helped championing that cause for us, as well as Telecare and other shelter service providers. So far, the energy around the center has been great. Just last week, we hosted 8 police chiefs as well as their city counterparts from throughout their organizations, as well as Supervisor Chafee, to show them facility pre-construction. And the feedback we've gotten that has been tremendous. And then I'll talk briefly about the integration of medical services. What we find is, especially if we go to an area where there's a high concentration of homeless individuals, oftentimes they're not having their medical needs met, and we find great success if we can provide some medical outreach. That oftentimes opens the door too for our outreach workers. And so that's why we're kind of leaning heavily on this community paramedicine model. And so as we work through that, we have a keen eye to know that that is also a way that we can open the door to better outreach to our homeless neighbors. So the idea behind this is that, in simple terms, it's a synergistic place for service providers to come to provide services to our homeless neighbors. We all know that everyone's affected by it, those who are experiencing homelessness and those who would call to have us engage with homeless on their behalf because they're not happy with the behaviors, or they've developed a rapport with a homeless individual, and now that person has said, I'm ready for services, and they want us to come there and offer that. So this center is going to be that hub for the North Spa, and we're really excited to see it get off the ground. Again, I touched on what the building was. If you've been out there, it looks like Mike Brady came and designed the building and then left, and it pretty much hasn't been touched since. If anybody can see this picture, you know on the other building is a long-standing community preschool. We've met with them. They're excited to have us as a neighbor, and we're excited to be their neighbor. And some of the improvements we're going to be able to do will touch their building as well and enhance the services that they are able to offer to their young ones.
So, issues and potential solutions. So, we're going to continue and with our city manager and assistant city manager work with the North Spa cities regarding use and funding of the Navigation Center. Since we brought this up at a meeting where Mr. Danley brought this up, we've been getting more access to the Placentia shelter. So this has been productive, and we are going to continue that conversations. We are going to hopefully bring for future city council agenda item, the next meeting, extending the Tbra program for seniors and veterans. It was a 2-year program that is going to expire in January. So this is a choice that the city council can decide to continue the program using federal home funds. And again, work with the Illumination Foundation for permanent source of funding of shelter operations. Tonight's agenda, we have a stopgap measure that will fund it for 6 or maybe more months, but we do need to look for permanent funding. And then after the required public outreach and notices, determine how to program the Home American Rescue Plan funding of $1.954 million. That was accepted by the City Council at the last meeting. As you can see, we have a lot of issues to work with, but we also are working together, and I feel with, Project Hope, that we're working beyond just our boundaries. We're focused on Fullerton, but we get complaints all the time that Anaheim homeless are coming, and we worked really closely with La Habra. We had a La Habra senior female come in. Luckily, St. Mary's had him hosted them at a hotel for 4 days. We worked with La Habra that actually took over the hotel payments. And just today, my caseworkers contacted her family, and they're driving down to pick her up and bring her home. So we do have success stories. We also have some stories that are not successful. For those that remember Jesse that came to a lot of our meetings to discuss about our RVs, he is on his way to his family, and we're following his trip there, and we are hopeful that he gets a new start on life. Staff is here to answer any questions, and thank you so very much.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Silva.
Yeah, no questions right now, but just thank you for the update. And I have forgotten some of the things that Fullerton has done to try and address this situation, so thank you for that. And like, just a comment, like you said earlier, we have been in the forefront of trying to help individuals who are experiencing homelessness, and I hope we can continue that. And it's great to hear, Chief, that the whole building is shaping up, and I like your 3 points of emphasis. The homeless, the youth, and the reentry, because I know there's been a lot of advocacy for, I guess, not arresting or releasing individuals who have committed crime, but there has been very little in terms of what do we do with these individuals who have to reenter society and they've lost skills or don't have skills. So I think this is a great item to look at and maybe secure more funding for that, because we do need to address that issue as well. But thank you for the update, and again, we've done a lot of stuff and I have forgotten half of it. Thank you.
I know the mayor and I spoke about how Fullerton has been the leader and we don't discuss it enough.
It's true. Yes, Councilmember Zara.
Yeah, no, again, just like Councilman Silva said, thank you for all the work that you've done, and staff and our chief, and I know our chief has really personally got involved in a lot of these efforts here. So thank you to everyone. This was really a great update. We've received a lot of comments and questions on what are we doing. And I think this is really very concise and puts it in perspective. And I'm looking forward to doing more. I think we need to stay ahead of the curve and be leaders as this city has been before. So looking forward to more discussions on this and finding more solutions.
And with that, we have members of the public who wish to comment on this.
Mayor, very quickly.
Sure.
This is just a receive and file item, correct?
Yes,
Thank
it
you,
is.
sir.
That is correct.
Good evening again, Council, Mayor, Maureen Milton, 53-year resident of Fullerton. I have questions. When you said availability for this is 5 days a week, what happens with the other 2? People are homeless 7 days a week. And also, is this something that anyone can refer a person in need to, or does this have to go through channels? That's my questions at this time. And I do have one thing that needs to be addressed about the Korean Memorial. May I make a statement on that I discovered? Sure. Thank you. I didn't think this was going to happen this fast, but someone said that they're leaving notes and I don't know if there's mementos. What is the city going to do with these? Are they going to be taken care of like they do at the Vietnam Memorial? The military does white glove service for the mementos left at the Vietnam Memorial. So I don't think that was even thought of about the committee. So, and already it's happening and it's only been, 3 days? So I was just curious on how that's going to be handled. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know, the flags aren't lit up either, actually. Before I forget,
Thanks.
Discuss later.
Good.
Yeah. Have you noticed? There's lights, but it's just the flags aren't.
Thank you for the report. I did not intend to comment on that, and I appreciate the amount of effort and programs that are being dedicated towards mitigating and hopefully solving the homeless problem. It was very difficult for me to understand what impact we are having to the overall problem from the presentation. What are our goals? What are the metrics that we are using to assess the impact and the difference that we are making? A couple things that struck me from the presentation is that the point-in-time counts was about 300 some homeless. I think it was 2020 at last count, and has been increasing from 2016, 2017 at an alarming rate, and I'm sure that's probably still continuing. The Illumination Foundation case studies, the number who have been moved to single-family homes, moved on to transition programs, those were in single digits, and it seems to me, not knowing a whole lot about the programs that are being implemented, are we being effective? I understand that we can be leaders amongst and relative to other cities, but what sort of impact are we really having? What are we trying to measure ourselves against? Number of calls reduced, perhaps, for homeless related incidents. It's very hard for me to tell as a member of the public from that report, so appreciate that next time we do a report on such matters, if we can include the impact metrics that we can use to measure ourselves. Thank you.
Hi, I would like to make a clarification. I'd like to understand maybe a clarification about this new resource center. So this is going to be a resource for the community. It's my concern that this new resource will have a good relationship with the public, and the general public will be accessible as far as needs out on the streets. Sometimes there's a kind of a barrier between the administration and the street level. So I think it's important maybe for this organization to have a good relationship with the public as far as being readily accessible for any suggestions of problems that are immediately available out on the street. And I don't know if any homeless people will be able to access this facility as a walk-in just for basic needs like first aid or anything like that, since it's located close to the hospital. But I'd like to see maybe some of the funds of the development of the center go towards finishing that sidewalk that I mentioned before that goes up Harbor. There's a lot of people that just walk to the hospital. And so that's maybe some of that funding could go towards the sidewalk infrastructure as part of that package deal. Thank you.
Mayor, City Council. Curtis Gamble, activist for the homeless veterans. I like hearing anything positive that's going to help our community, the city of Fullerton. But at the same time, I do want to share my opinions. My opinions may not always be agreed, but it's the way I feel and the way many other homeless people feel that are not here tonight to talk, to speak for themselves. I think that the Hope Center is great. I think anything that's going to help us in the way of getting rid of homelessness is great. But at the same time, I think that you open up a center and you still got people on the streets and they have nowhere to go. Not one person in Fullerton has a place to go tonight. They can't go to the navigation center because they're not wanted there anymore. But yet we're going to spend almost $2 million on a center. I want the center. I want all positive things, but I don't want the people on the streets. No way. No way. Okay, I've been here begging for years, for a beds for the Fullerton homeless. So here's what I'm recommending tonight. I support everybody and everything, but at the same time, I live in reality. The people need somewhere to go tonight. Mary's Kitchen over in the city of Orange seems to be the most caring organization in Orange County. That don't say anything bad about the others. We need all the rest of them. But everybody's welcome at Mary's Kitchen. And that funding that we're getting, send the $2 million to Mary's Kitchen. I don't recommend it send it to anybody other than Mary's Kitchen. Also, I was told that by one of my friends. He said, "Hey, look, that Cash App will work great, because the homeless people, we don't need you. We just need the money, so that we can get the things that we want. You know, and if you're not willing to give them to us, we're tired of your talk, but we appreciate it that you're doing something. But anyway, here's the deal. I recommend Mary's Kitchen be a partner of what we're doing. I recommend all funding for the homeless go to Mary's Kitchen. We're not going to beg anymore. We would if we thought it were doing it good. Mary's Kitchen in the city of Orange partner in our spa, in the spa with the continuum of care. They are our partners. Let's use them. 24-hour service, 7 days a week, basically almost. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there Zoom callers on
We
this
do
one?
have one hand raised.
Great.
Jane Rands, you should be unmuted.
Thanks. I appreciate all the really constructive comments that have come from the public tonight on this item. Wholeheartedly support their thoughts and their ideas and their questions. I had a question, though, specifically about the report that was provided, and since Chief Dunn was part of the presentation tonight, I was hoping that the council could ask this of him on my behalf. I actually encountered a homeless person outside of the police department on a Sunday morning, September 26th, I believe it was. And we asked for some help from the police. And there was two officers that came out, very kind, very good people, had a sort of not so good rapport with the person living on the street because the person had been arrested the night before. But he had called us asking for help us as we were walking along. And so we came over to offer to see what we could do to help him. And when we had the officers come out, we asked specifically, are there any resources? Is there any way for him to access care? He said he was willing to go into a facility, but they told us repeatedly that there was no what do you call it, workers, the social workers. There were no programs. There was nothing contracted through the city or the police department to help facilitate homeless people. And I'm just a little curious, is there a lack of communication? Were some of those programs that were discussed in the presentation past programs? I know it said that there was 2 current liaisons. I'm always a little circumspect of what's happened to that liaison program over the years, where quite honestly, I've seen videotape reports of people living, here in Fullerton that feel that they're being harassed by those liaison officers, past liaison officers. I had a couple of friends that were living on the street that were. Unfortunately, now they're housed, no thanks to any programs in the city. It's actually a nonprofit from Brea that helped them. But I would just really like to have a better understanding of what programs actually are available, how people will access them. When the public comes to the police and says, hey, we need some help. What can we do for this person? I'd like to make a difference. And we're told that there is nothing. I want to have an explanation of why there was nothing on September 26th, but we're being told that there are these programs that the police department's been running, but somehow those 2 officers weren't aware of them. Thanks.
Thank you.
Would you like me to respond, Mayor?
Please, yes, thank you.
So currently we are 5 days only, and one of our own social workers. But one of the goals of Project Hope is by putting together all of us, we will have 7 days coverage. So we will be able to respond to any crises, to any concerns, to any hotspots 7 days a week. Now, why I mentioned 5 days is this is the first time CityNet had 2 days of outreach, 1 day of office work, and then telephone. We now have 5 days a week. So we've extended our services. It's, step after step. Again, we're getting better as we go. And we have higher hopes and we will be there. Referral process, resources, that is one thing that our case managers are working on. We will plan in January to start holding community forums and training anybody that's interested on the process of getting homelessness into shelters or into the continuum of care. So working with the county, there's a lot of different programs and a lot of different trainings that we will have. We will have a flow chart that will show a resident, if you're interested in getting somebody into services, here's step 1, step 2, step 3. So what is the impact goals metrics? One of the great things is that the North Orange County Task Force has done is created a program called Outreach Grid. Outreach Grid has in it thousands of homelessness in the multiple contacts that we have had. We do have reports, we do have matrices, and that is something that hopefully maybe in the future on a monthly basis we can provide to the City Council. So $2 million is not being built on the center, so that the center is $650,000 of CDBG funds. So I just wanted to clarify that. The $2 million will come before the City Council decide how to use it. So, and Jane, we will be getting out a lot more information on what residents can use, their process. Our police department can refer clients into the 3 shelters, Placentia, Buena Park, and Bridges at Kramer, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So if we have a client that wants to go in, the police department can do it. So I can't tell you exactly what happened on September 26th.
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, thanks for addressing those questions, by the way. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Just to follow up on a couple of those questions, is there a way to, when we're compiling all the data and creating these metrics, is there a way to maybe set up something on our city website to have this information also accessible to the public, so that the public can also engage with us and this information, and also the resources? I know this has been navigating the resources because there's so many, some at the city, some at the county, there's some state programs, all kinds of things, and it's very difficult to navigate those. I'm wondering if there's a way to also put those in a more concise, sort of easy to understand page on our website, and that way we can also, anybody can just say, hey, go to that page there, or they can print it out in some PDF form, and then provide it also to our PD and other departments, because we all get asked these questions as well.
We are working on a very small pocket guide, because a lot of homeless will put things in their pocket, in their in their wallets, that will provide these services. So that is something I've charged our case managers for. So hopefully that comes out shortly. Another item is with our outreach grid, we're hoping to have a public interface element. So if you find a homeless person and they're interested in services, you can go on Outreach Grid, you can say this is where they're at, this is the service they want, and we will be able to respond to that.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just wanted to highlight a few things about are we getting enough bang for our money? I know that the Illumination Foundation, when somebody goes in there, from entry to permanent supported housing doesn't happen overnight. It's a 6, 9, 12-month process to get the individual stable enough where he's willing to go, willing to maintain himself. And when we talk about permanent housing there, what the Illumination Foundation does, they put him in permanent housing, but they also provide a counselor there. So it's not something that they're in on Monday, in 2 weeks, they're in a housing. It takes quite a while for them. So it would be nice to put that up there where the average stay and so on. And just the other thing, that the Illumination Foundation on their own, they secure and buy the real estate property where they put the individual. So that's another part of their services. They're, in essence, self-funding permanent supported housing. So that takes time. And the other thing that navigation center has become Right, but the other thing that has become, just to add some matrices, is that it's become a local clinic. They have local residents there going into their clinic and being attended. In essence, it's medical services easily accessible to a lot of the community in there. So those are the few things that, we've been doing in terms of providing services to homeless and the community.
And I will say, on average, in the other two shelters, a person will go in and it's over 120 days before they get a voucher, before they're really getting into the process. So the numbers Illumination Foundation has done within their first year is very high. And I would put them against any other shelter in the nation for the numbers that they have provided. They have more resources because they have some of their own homes, so that helps. But, it is great numbers. And these are a lot of, like the group when we funded it was all Fullerton residents. And that's who has been helped. And, they have some really great compelling stories of how they've helped. On Valencia Avenue, as all of you know, when we did the clearance, we had a 80-plus-year-old woman in a car that needed medical assistance. Illumination Foundation was available. We put her in there. She has the medical attention, and she's now in one of those single-family homes that needed more support. So there is many success stories, and I think there'll be more success stories. And again, this is the first in the nation, and I think it's the model, once again, Fullerton is on the forefront.
Okay, with that, thank you. Appreciate it. And we are now at our last regular item, which is item number 18, American Rescue Plan Act Potential Navigation Center Funding. This item was requested by council members Jung and Silva.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
I wanted this brought forward this evening with Councilman Silva. My reasons are very obvious. The nation's homeless population has increased every year for the last 4 years in a row, and I would expect this year to be no different. We have a moral responsibility as a city to help find resolutions to assist our unhoused population. Our state is home to the most amount of those who are unhoused. The metrics are challenging to measure because of the nature of the concern and the problem itself. As far as I can tell, we're continuously putting our fingers in the dam, and that's about it. And sometimes that's about it is good enough for what we want to do, because we don't do that, and the problem becomes exponentially worse. So this problem is a federal and state aid issue. That federal and state aid should be unprecedented, particularly when they are having the surpluses that they have at the state level. And based on the fact that so many of our homeless in our communities are veterans, they are families, they are men and women of color, sadly that funding hasn't come in the way it should. And we as a city are here having to fill the gap. So I want to encourage our council members this evening to fund the center that calls Fullerton its home. There are 150 beds there. That's tantamount to $50 a day per bed. That's what we're asking for funding here. It's of the $1.3 million in ARPA funds to fund the navigation center for the next 6 months, 3 of which, if I don't need to remind everyone, are the coldest months of our calendar year. So at the very least, I would ask you to consider 3 months of funding if you can't manage the 6 months. But Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for your time, sir.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Councilman Jung's sentiments there, but I would say I would like the 6 months, just because it will take a while to get that going and providing the services. And this is something, the city has committed to, is to helping our residents who are experiencing homelessness. And again, the work that the Illumination Foundation has done speaks for itself. And just a couple of highlights. We are a national model. We've had counties and elected officials fly in from far as New York to look at the model, to look to see what's going to happen. And they're actually looking to duplicate this model in other states. And it serves its purpose. It helps the individuals. And again, we have, I like to say we need to commit to this to keep us, to enable us to enforce our no camping ordinances and get the individuals into shelter, into rehab, and into housing. So with that, I would, again, like to see if we can continue funding the center for the next 6 months, and then and maybe before that, we will get some more of the state funding that we're waiting for, and use that to supplement it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I do have some questions. I'm generally supportive of this, but I'd like, just for the sake of the public, if we can have some questions addressed that are related to this. We got a lot of questions about people being moved from place to place, not being housed in some in our shelter. The lack of funding, why did that happen? Where did the money run out? Some of these concerns that came about that has resulted in this being brought forward. And then the other question I had is there is some, I know the state has allocated some funds that we are discussing, and how do they play into this factor?
So, with the mayor's, okay. Twofold. When the Illumination Foundation was approved by the City Council, there was no operating funds that were included. There was $500,000 for tenant improvements, but the former City Council did not look at how was this going to be funded. I think the goal was that the recuperative care side would help fund the shelter side. So, the 60 beds of the recuperative care that is funded by Medicare, Medi-Cal, insurance companies would help fund the Navigation Center. When it opened in April, the city, was able to use county funds, county COVID funds, to fund over 6 months, over 8 months of services there. Now, it was countywide, but we had many Fullerton residents there. This city council in January of this year, again, allocated $440,000 for operation of the shelter. We were able to increase it by $5,000. We got over 3.5, close to 4 months of operation of the shelter. Our funding ran out. Staff had placed a request for the ARPA funding because, again, we have to look for permanent solutions, not finding pots of money. So we looked for the ARPA funding again to try to look for the county, state, federal funding permanent. Illumination Foundation has been a great partner. They are keeping our homeless there until we've been finding beds for them. Every homeless person, nobody was placed on the street. And I just need to keep saying that. No one has been placed on the street. They are either still at the Illumination Foundation or at the Placentia Navigation Center or at the Brena Park. All three of these are relatively new shelters, so it's not like we're putting anybody on mats on the floor. All of them have beds. All of them are very nice shelters. So, yes, we did move some Fullerton residents from the Navigation Center over to the other two shelters that are fully funded.
And the state funding, is there any relevance here?
Not at this point. The City Council has provided staff direction in closed session, and so we're moving forward on that.
Well, before we request public comment on this, I just wanted to share a couple concerns that I have, which is I think it's commendable. I think these people need help, but the traditional avenues have been federal and state. And our local subdivision of state government, the county of Orange, I know I was a member of that council when we provided the funding for the NAV Center back when. It was never explained that we would have ongoing costs of maintenance as part of that. And so we're in this predicament now where the city has major structural budget issues. And we've committed CDBG funds. We've done all sorts of things. Sometimes we've been provoked to do that externally. I just question again whether a city government like ours, not a large city like Los Angeles or something like that, which does not have any dedicated revenues with which to support these efforts going forward. Cities traditionally haven't been in the social services businesses, whether we have the wherewithal or not, because we're wanting in so many ways in this city. So any amount of discretionary funds that we have will not be used for all those other wants and needs. And so I'm always first and foremost to talk to state level and federal level people. The federal government is printing money like there's no tomorrow right now, and the state government is running very large surpluses. We don't have those advantages or problems or whatever. So that's where I would urge a little bit of caution. When you lead with your heart on these things, sometimes you commit the city government to future bills, just like the NAV Center, where we expected it was only that initial amount of money. Now we have an ongoing demand year to year. So at least looking at our budget realities, it's a bit of a leap for me to try to commit these funds there when, again, we have so many other needs as well. That's not to say that they don't need help. That's not to say we can't play a role in it. But I know that in many cases we've looked at ARPA funds and they've been spent over and over several times already, even though nothing has been applied at this point. And those would be my concerns. I met with local Catholic church leaders recently who surprised me because they led off with the idea of, we've been trying to get cities to fund this. Cities don't have the wherewithal. They concluded that the county is where they need to go for that type of funding. So am I way off base on this, or?
Well, as you can see how we presented the homeless issues in this report, this is a stopgap, a needed stopgap measure to where we can look at, ongoing funding, not city, but, I think as Councilmember Jung has adequately and eloquently stated, there is a need right now. We are going into the, I'm praying, rainy season. So, this is for telling Illumination Foundation city staff that you need to find a more permanent solution. And I think that's what we're asking for tonight.
I would just add, I support the 6 months. I do share some of the mayor's concerns. I think the last thing, the city shouldn't be in the business of, providing shelter. However, obviously this was a great effort to, I think, get this, get the shelter launched. I think the partnership that was created, has been successful. I was disappointed, when I first learned of this, that the funding had not been issued for an extended period of time. It surprised me, considering we went, the effort. Obviously it was done by a prior council, but the effort that was went to, or the effort that council went to, I think, to get this done, it's something that should be funded. So I support the 6 months and would like to see the city get, additional funding from other sources, as in order to make that permanent. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I'd actually move the item for 6 months if possible. And I think we still have to have public comments. But
we haven't had public comments at this stage. So members of the public who wish to speak to this item.
Hi, my name is Kurt Johnston. It's my idea that the federal money should be given to the city of Fullerton, should go towards expenditures and not payrolls. So these shelters have a very high administration cost. So a lot of the money is going to the administration, and it's not sustainable from just a grant. So my idea is to let the homeless have more freedom to sort of police themselves. So homeless people could be very responsible if you give them they have these things in China. They're foldable container homes. They run about $2,000. You order a whole bunch of them. They fold out. You could put those on a city-owned lot. For instance, the city-owned land behind La Paz. That could fit a lot of these container homes. And you would have an apartment manager on the site, which would pretty much run the operation. Instead of having a whole lot of administration and running the cost of a shelter, you would make capital expenditures. And I think you'd be surprised how well people will do once they have, what homeless people really want is their own little safety spot. It doesn't have to be that big. No matter how nice these shelters are, they're not really a safe place, especially for mentally ill people. These shelters make people nervous because it's like a community housing. So my suggestion is to make capital expenditures on very low cost container homes, and then you would only have a manager there to run it, and people would be pretty much self-regulated, just like any neighborhood in our community.
Mayor, City Council, Curtis Gamble, activists for the homeless and the veterans. Okay, I'm just gonna, you know what? I'm just gonna read off what I have written on my paper, just little notes. But I want you to keep this in mind. These are veterans that you're talking about. We just celebrated Veterans Day. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just read what I, scribbled down on my paper. Okay, it said Mayor, City Council, I did that one. Okay, but it talks about veterans, tiny homes, tiny shelters for the veterans. And I have a list that say number 1, cash out cards. Cash out cards for the homeless veterans. And what this does, it helps you get hotels, shelters, transportation, and your other needs. I have a cash out card. It's right here in my wallet. It's for low-income homeless people, basically. And this card gets 200. Well, I have the cash out, but no, the continuum of, not the continuum of care card, but I can't remember it, but I'll think of it. But anyway, the SB2 industrial zones. Okay, I have that written down. It says safe parking program. Mary's Kitchen has that. And Mary's Kitchen, again, is in the North Spar. We should work together and open up a safe parking program there. The 3, Assemblywoman Sharon Court, again, she's been at Mary's Kitchen, very helpful, taking a tour of it, and she's supporting it 100%. Mary's Kitchen, again, I wrote it down, safe parking for veterans, program for the shelters. We need to do something for our veterans right now today. Mary's Kitchen, City of Orange, funding 24-hour service a day, 6 days a week. That's where people can go right now. You don't have to wait till tomorrow. You can come. Anybody can come. That's the type of service we need. OCTA is a great partner. We can get anything. The city can get anything they want from OCTA. Because as bus drivers, we need good streets and stuff like that. We need the bike lanes. They will help with the bike lanes. 7, the Continuum of Care Board. The Continuum of Care Board has 9 open seats, $30 million a year in funding for homeless community. And I think we should be there more. That money is available, $30 million to, a city can be a part of that. So we're not begging. Again, veterans, we fought for that. That's ours. You haven't given us anything. Mary's Kitchen, again, in the SPAR, same thing. Fullerton, again, here's what the navigation centers we want. This is what we really want as homeless people. We want the Fullerton City Lights to be a navigation center, which it already is. We want the Satria Apartments to be a navigation center, which it already is. We want the Fullerton Heights Apartment, the Hudson Ridge Apartment, navigation centers right now. That's what we want today. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gamble. The Zoom callers?
We have 2 hands raised in Zoom.
Sure.
Jacob Britton, you should be able to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hello, council members. I am Jacob Britton, a law student at the University of California, Irvine, and I'm once again respectfully urging you to vote to apply American Rescue Plan Act monies to fully fund the operations of the homeless shelter at the Navigation Center tonight. The Navigation Center provides shelter for up to 90 homeless individuals. As is just discussed, many of these are Fullerton residents, were moved to shelters outside the city when the Navigation Center closed due to a lack of funding a few weeks ago. Applying ARPA funding to the shelter will keep it solvent and allow these individuals, as well as future Fullerton homeless, to stay in the city with a roof over their heads. I also request that you consider applying California state grant monies to purchase the Navigation Center building, if necessary, to stabilize operating costs. Given your expediency in placing this item on the agenda as soon as it came to your attention, I am hopeful that you will do the right thing and decide to fully fund the operations of the shelter. Thank you.
And Jane Rands, you should be able to unmute now.
Good evening once again. I understand why this item's on here and there's no other option at this point. And I know that the council wasn't aware of this problem in a timely manner, but I do have some concerns about the partnership with Illumination Foundation and that they aren't funding their programs or budgeting their programs appropriately, it appears, and that the city's, while the city's in dire needs, is having to bail them out. I agree, it's a noble cause. I would like to urge the council to contact our county representative, Doug Chafee, who is supposed to be managing, he's on that board, he's supposed to be managing the needs of homeless people within our county. And also meeting with Illumination Foundation and getting some oversight of their budgeting and an understanding of how they're going to run this program in the future and give us, the residents of the city, some confidence that this isn't going to happen again. Thank you.
And there are no more callers.
Okay, we'll bring the item back to council.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just a clarification, we're not bailing them out. I mean, if Fullerton doesn't want to put any of the residents in the shelter, we don't have to pay for the beds. So we're just, I didn't agree with that comment, we're bailing them out. If we don't want to send our homeless to the Navigation Center, we don't have to. But with that, I think, motion and a second.
Yeah, my hesitation again is that, we're in negotiations right now with employee groups. We have really badly damaged streets in the city. We're talking about retaining employees in the city or paying at least a competitive wage. So all this comes out of our budget. The one-time monies, the ARPA monies, we're talking about 6 months here. If it's annualized, it's $2.5 million. It's not insubstantial. So that's my concern about it. There's no question that there's a need. There's no question we need a direction to be able to place some of our homeless. But two things are clear to me. The problem isn't likely to get better in the near term. And second of all, we're not talking just 3 months or 6 months. When we hit that point, we'll find that the situation has maybe worsened and certainly will be no better. So this is an ongoing obligation, and to use one-time, first-time monies, of which we don't, it's the sustainability is really my problem. But I can see that the sentiment on the council is to fund this, so I wouldn't get in the way of that. We have a motion and a second. If there are no further comments, we'll take a roll call.
Councilmember Jung.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Aye.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap.
Aye.
And Mayor Whitaker.
Hate to do it, but I'll abstain on this.
It passes 401.
Sure. And with that, that concludes our agenda this evening. Our next meeting will be Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th.